Hello, everybody. Welcome to Your Geek Show. I'm Miss Shannon. I'm here with my friend Rob Callahan, and our other friend Jaden Satia couldn't make it today, so filling in this morning, we brought our bound incubus demon and social media demon, Nika Hotep. Welcome to the microphone.
Hello.
I was a little worried about bringing him out. He has not been on the best of behavior this week, but we'll give it a shot because you are very keen on the topics that we will be covering today. So I thought I would give you a try.
You've not been behaving?
No.
I am always behaving.
He is always behaving, usually poorly. Is what it is.
Letter of the law.
Yeah.
Letter of the law. Letter of the law.
But on today's show, we will be discussing with our guest geek of the week, Lee Egbert from 11 Wells Spirits. We will be talking whiskey, spirits, and our favorite Doctor Who companion. So welcome to the microphone, Lee. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, top of the morning.
Yeah, and one of the things that we need to cover this week is that sadly enough in the community at large, and specifically in the Geekly community, we lost the fantastic and the very talented Sir Christopher Lee.
Hence why I've been very, very sad.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean,
get it off your chest.
He is known for playing misunderstood villains, and why would I not be misbehaving?
And I thought it was a very interesting story as to why Christopher Lee said that he was in a number of those different roles. It's because of the angular features that he had and things like that. So he just got cast those, and it was something that he decided that he was going to run with. And he made a very, very long career of that. Another thing that a lot of people don't know, along with his acting career, that he was also a big fan of heavy metal music and had a series of albums that he was on and had helped produce that were called, as he put it, symphonic metal. So he had those out there as well, along with some heavy metal versions of some Christmas albums that he produced in the latter years of his life, which I think is really interesting because I think once you get to be like in your 80s and your 90s, if you have a hobby and you're a fan of music and you're like, you know what, I used to listen to a lot of opera and I liked all that, but now I think I could do a little something more. And you're like, I like metal music and people want me to be on it. I'm going to do it. I mean, talk about wrapping up your bucket list and throwing in something else. If anybody had the gravitas to go, I'm going to do whatever kind of music I want to do. And trust me, not all of the music was lyrically sound or really great. It was kind of cheesy, but it was fun. And it was something that he could carry off because, Christopher Lee was that guy. So he passed away at the age of 93. And now we have our little montage to Sir Christopher Lee.
It was a good time for all creatures of the earth. But fate decreed that the dark prophecy of a demon knight could bring a tragic end to this peace, scarring their lives forever.
I've been looking forward to this.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
Sense great fear in you, Skywalker. You have hate, you have anger, but you don't use them.
His is the name the world will never forget. He is dark.
A new power is rising. Its victory is at hand. This night, the land will be stained with the blood of Rohan. March to Hell's Deep. Leave none alive. To war!
Raven, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.
Rest in peace, Sir Christopher Lee. Do you feel better now, Nikahotep?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
I know you
much.
felt like you were missing things throughout the week.
I was crying in the box.
Yeah.
I was crying.
It was very moist in the box. I understand that.
It was very, very sad.
Yeah.
Although when you said, twice the pride, twice the fall in there, was that towards me?
Yeah. Nothing was directed.
Okay.
Nothing was directed at you.
Okay.
No, it was just some of his most notable scenes and some of the things we didn't. I wasn't a big fan of James Bond, so I didn't get a chance to see him as one of the Bond villains. But I know that he was like Sir Ian Fleming is his cousin, the person who was the author of those books. So that was part of the reason why they made sure that he was involved in that project as well. But it's just years and years and years, and I loved watching the behind-the-scenes footage of when people had a chance to work with him, like what he would do on the set of Lord of the Rings and what he would do on the set of The Hobbit and things like that. And he just seems like such an interesting character altogether. So do you have any favorite Christopher Lee moments, Mr. Egbert?
I mean, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan as well, but that was such a great character. I actually, there's a skyscraper in Shanghai where I lived for a while that looked like his tower, and every time I went there up to the martini bar up at the top,
right.
I always I'm like, we're going up to the top,
You're like, ooh.
Martinis, you say?
Exactly, at the top of the
and we weren't going to start with martinis, but we were going to start with whiskey talk because we do have our whiskey expert this morning, and I was so excited that you could come and see us, Lee. So, Lee, so tell us, so you're 11 Wells Spirits, and I know you started actually producing bitters first.
Yeah, exactly. So I used to travel a lot for work. And like I said, I lived in China for a little while. And, when I traveled for work, I went to New York a lot. And they've got some really great cocktail bars there. And so I went into one called The Little Branch, went in the basement. And I was in Manhattan. So what are you going to order?
Right.
A Manhattan, right?
Yeah. So
I ordered it. And, man, I was blown away. I'd never had a Manhattan that way. And I was changed instantly. And then I had decided I pretty much just want to build a Manhattan from top to bottom. I want to make everything to make a Manhattan. So I'm like...
So it wasn't good enough for you to go and buy the components. You're like, no, I'm like a mad scientist. I'm going to go make my own.
Right, exactly. Okay. Well, I'd kind of been obsessing about spirits and stuff like that for a little bit. And that was just kind of that just put me right on track. So I came back and started making orange bitters. I did a barrel-aged orange bitters where I use bourbon as the base.
Okay.
A lot of people don't do that. They use a vodka base. And I was like, I don't want to put vodka in my Manhattan. Are you crazy?
Okay.
So is a Manhattan easy to make?
A Manhattan's very easy to make. Yep. It's whiskey, vermouth, sweet vermouth, and bitters. That's it. And a good cherry, of course.
Okay, a good cherry. Are there bad cherries? Like, how do I determine that there's a bad cherry in my Manhattan? Not a bad fruit altogether, a bad cherry. Nikahotep, put your arm down. So, kind of thing. So how do I determine if it's a bad cherry?
If it matches the color red on the primary color wheel.
Okay.
Bright red.
Oh my gosh, more science.
That's a bad cherry.
Okay.
Well, just like the classic red you learn in kindergarten.
Yes.
If it's that red, it's wrong.
Okay.
It should be more like like a wine color or something like that.
Dark like my soul.
So the one you get at the malt shop, that's the kind of the classic, cherry. But now there's these gray cherries that are brandied and really good stuff. So that's I'll actually have a brandy cherry coming out this fall.
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah, of my own, because in my quest to create the perfect Manhattan from top to bottom, I need to also have the cherry.
Okay.
Who knows? Maybe I'll do the glassware eventually.
See, you just need everything because you're like, okay,
exactly,
and it'll have 11 wells all over it.
Yeah, exactly.
And because I am a big whiskey fan. You're a whiskey fan. I even found this is your whiskey theme song. And I thought you'd appreciate this.
Yeah,
one.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
I think of you every time I hear this song.
Nice, awesome. They write songs about so many things,
right?
But there's so much about whiskey and drinking and booze. It's just like it's a big part of everybody's life.
So you can just keep it top of mind. So you started with the bitters and you said I'm going to make my own Manhattan, but how did you do that transformation from I do the bitters to now I'm going to do the whiskeys next? And I know that you've now broadened out to additional spirits as well. But how was that next step as to I'm going to start distilling whiskey working for you?
Most people probably know that making whiskey or whatever moonshine in their basement is illegal.
I did not know that because I had never tried it, so I had not fact-checked it if it was illegal to do that in my basement. So that is good to know.
But if you're doing it in your bathtub, that's something.
Right. Bathtubs. There's like a force field.
If you're doing it ironically.
Right. Exactly. That's only for gin, though, I think.
Oh, okay.
That's a specific classification.
So you have to have a particular license, and so to do this, correct? Okay,
right.
That makes sense.
It's a felony, and there's actually a lot of rumors going out there that you can produce 1 gallon and only drink it yourself and that kind of stuff, but it's not homebrew legal. I mean, homebrewing was only legalized in 1976.
All right, and that's still specifically things like wine and beer?
Exactly.
All right.
Wine and beer, exactly. And technically, when you're making whiskey or you're technically making a beer first.
Okay.
So the first stage is making beer. So both myself and my business partner Bob, we've been working on making beers and stuff like that. Learning through the homebrew process.
Right.
So that's the first stage you can do to kind of work on your yields and kind of get your alcohol level up and that kind of thing, and get good conversion from starches to sugars in your beers from the whole grain.
And if you want to feel like you're not just a lush, but you're like really smart, you should go check out a whiskey distillery. Because I had a chance to go and visit Lee's facility over in St. Paul. So 11 Wells moved into the. Don't look at me, Nickahotep.
Without him,
you never take me anywhere.
He's seething. Seething.
I want to hear more about St. Paul.
What is this place you speak of? We could go on a quest across the river to this place that nobody ever goes.
So their facility over in St. Paul, you guys moved into the old Hams Brewery, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's actually this really great scene, and you go and there's these giant stills all over the place, and I'm like, wow, I feel like I walked into like whiskey nirvana, and so Lee was like,
sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Lee's here now. You guys we can set up an additional field trip for the show and go and
She's wearing a necklace. Take it.
We're going to do this show at the studio at some point.
That would be fantastic.
At the distillery,
we
right?
can do it. So tell us all about the distillery, because we got to see so much, and it was very different than what I was expecting, because I'd been to beer breweries before, but it is a whole different kind of setup.
Yeah, we like to say, and everybody in the industry, in the distilling industry, says, whiskey is what beer wants to be when it grows up.
I like that.
So yeah, it's we love beer. I like. Pretty much, there's almost any beverage that I won't try, but whiskey, there's something special about it. I mean, people love rum, but they, whiskey is a passion.
Yes.
For some people, and so that's where the line kind of gets drawn. But yeah, we're making, it does look very Willy Wonka-ish.
Yes.
There's lots of copper and stainless and the copper actually has a real functional component in the distilling process. It actually takes sulfides out negative, chemicals out of the distilling process. So by coming in contact with that copper, it takes out those bad. So usually that's why you always see copper involved.
Which now, I mean, back to you shouldn't make this in your bathtub,
Right.
situation.
There's a couple reasons.
There was a lot of stuff going on when I went over to the distillery. I was like, oh, yeah, I do not need to jump into this world on my own. I felt like when I was going to go and do, my sister and I we're going to make wine at home. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. We could do that. And you just make some bottles and it might be terrible, but we can give that a shot. I'm walking around in 11 Wells going, yeah, I need to leave this to the scientists and Lee and his partner. But, I mean, the other thing that I think was interesting, because you did bring in some of the bottles of the different whiskeys that you're making, is that they put their back to science, their recipe is on the bottle. And I know that was different compared to what a lot of whiskeys and spirits had done. You're like, wow, you're actually going to put what's in it on the bottle?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, there's in the industry right now, there's a lot of controversy over what's craft and who's making what. There's, a couple of other distilleries that are buying from out of state and then bottling it in their state and then calling it, homemade kind of stuff.
Right.
And so people are really up in arms about all of this, as they should be. I mean, consumers are much smarter than they ever were before. They've got the internet. Their BS meters go off way faster, and it's so great because people like us now, people kind of are starting to really appreciate it. And so we're like, do you know what? In light of all that, we're like, of all the controversy about transparency, let's be completely transparent and go the other direction and just share every bit of information. So we have, the yeast that we use in there, the mash bill, if we know the origin of the actual oak that went into the barrel, which is different from the cooperage who makes the barrel. So we put that on as well. The proof it goes into the barrel, we were doing some testing at what proof it goes into the barrel because different levels of ethanol and water extract different chemicals from the barrel. And so there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes into it. And we were just like, let's throw it all on the bottle. This is part of our prototype series. So this is where we get to experiment. So you try one of our prototype series ryes from one batch and it'll taste very different from another batch, which is cool. And then we'll do a blended version of a rye eventually. We've got one coming out later this year, and a bourbon, which will be very consistent.
Okay.
But these are meant to be experimental. Like even our bourbon, for example, we're using, this one's a weeded bourbon right now, which is out, but we have a rye bourbon and
okay,
an
back
odor
up
bourbon.
Because now you're getting back. Now you're into. Now you went into you went into the spirit weed.
Grains. I like grains.
Exactly, and that's what happens. And I think is because I feel like we're to the point now with whiskeys and ryes and bourbons and these things that for somebody like me, it's like when I like wine, and so I had to spend all this time educating myself.
Oh, man,
I could because people wanted me to be able to talk so deep and go down the I'm not a sommelier. I said I just like wine. And so now when I feel like that has turned into what goes on with whiskey, where if I say I like whiskey, now I get fact checked because there are so many people that know so much about all these different things that I am not a big enough whiskey geek anymore.
You're treated like a fake whiskey girl.
Exactly. They're like, you like whiskey. You don't really like whiskey. What distillery are you a fan of? And I'm like, So I was glad when I met Lee that I'm like, I could just say 11 Wells and then I sound really smart automatically.
There you go.
So we started with whiskey and then so bourbons, ryes, what are the different how does all this stuff work into my spirit world?
Sure.
I like calling it that way. I like calling it the spirit world because it sounds so existential.
Spirit world.
Right.
I get very excited when I call it that. So.
Yeah. Because we've got a lot of bottles here that are different colors.
Yes. So I see a wheat whiskey.
Yeah, actually they're just all signified by color, not by name.
Okay. It's like Kool-Aid. What kind of Kool-Aid do you like? I like the red one or the purple Kool-Aid.
Exactly.
So I can't just say whiskey anymore. So is bourbon a variety of whiskey? What makes it a bourbon?
There's a couple of ways that whiskeys break down. So either it's by the type of grain or it's where it's coming from.
Okay.
So you have the where it's coming from, and those are really easy to understand. Of course, Scotch is Scotland, and Irish is Ireland, Canada, Japan, and then now they're coming out with a bunch of Scotches or single malts out of India. Japan actually just won the best whiskey of the year. Scotland is freaking out right now.
They're like, we had that.
They had it, and it was funny because an expat was from Japan was was in Scotland, and he just fell in love with it. He
Okay.
came back, and he's the godfather now of almost every one of those distilleries. Kind of have him to thank, and he started a number of them himself. So now they're coming of age, and they're getting to be very old, and so now. I mean, they literally did, and they're doing. The Japanese. I mean,
Yes.
they're fantastic. I took Japanese in junior high school because, and I love that culture because they've got. I think I must be part Japanese because they just know how to obsess about a specific thing and dedicate their entire life to one specific art form.
Okay.
Like whether it's sushi or whether it's the pottery that they do is fantastic, and they actually took the craft cocktail scene and just ran with it. And now a lot of our technique for the modern mixologists, they hate being called that, by the way.
Do they?
Yeah,
Okay.
they like craft cocktails or craft bartenders.
Okay.
But in the know, they actually hate mixologists.
I appreciate you saying that because I have
Yeah.
probably been insulting people, and I was like, you don't like to be called that?
Yeah, if you go to Marvel Bar and say that, oh, look at, hey, nice to meet you, Mr. Mixologist, they'll be like,
They'll roll their
eyes. Yeah.
Call him that.
You're going to call everybody,
Yeah.
yeah, because he just likes to incite difficulty. So
I'm going to reserve it for when they're not treating me well as a customer.
There you go.
Hey, mixologist.
Exactly. So that
tell
was
us,
one
what-
class.
Okay.
So you have the areas in which they're made, but then you also have what they're made from.
Okay.
So you have rye whiskey, wheat whiskey, corn whiskey. Those all have to use a minimum of 51% of the grain that they're being named after.
Okay.
So if I did an oat whiskey, I would have to use a minimum of 51%. And then there's other guidelines for all of the different whiskeys as to how high you can distill up to. As far as proof, and most whiskeys you can't go over 160 unless it's a light whiskey. There's a
Okay.
weird category of light whiskey. Nobody makes light whiskeys.
What is the average proof of a whiskey?
So normally when you buy it, a bottle on the shelf, it's going to be at 80 proof.
Okay.
But
That seems plenty. I mean, is that like...
yeah, you'd think
You would go. I feel like that is a serviceable proof. I think that I could.
it's a
survive
great
that.
starting point.
Yes.
I would say.
And I know one of the things you'd mentioned when I did the tour of the of 11 Wells is that you guys get it when it's still so when the
when
proof
it's
is so
hot.
high
Yeah.
that that it doesn't have a time to settle. That when you get down to 80 proof, you feel like you're just drinking
It's water.
tap water. Yes.
Yeah. It's just like a watered down cocktail to me. I don't even drink cocktails really that much that have juices in them anymore because I love I like a nice spirited cocktail. That's why I like a Manhattan. There's nothing in there that's diluting it.
So
you
you just want it nice and clean and just an
yeah.
efficient
Why-
cocktail.
Yeah, why are you messing around?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you be drinking a cocktail
So
if it wasn't a strong one?
Of the items that you brought this morning, Lee, what's your favorite? I see we have 5 different bottles here.
Well, you could probably go by the one that's the most
That's
empty. Yeah.
What's
so,
that one?
Yeah, that's our single malt. But actually, it wasn't my fault that it's this empty. It was actually turned on its. Yeah.
Oh, so it's spilled. Like Nick Hotep's like, I didn't do it. Don't put me back in my box.
Exactly.
So now that's fine. So let me see that one. Which one's that
Yeah,
one?
this one is our single malt. This
Okay.
just came out.
And this was new, right? This is
Yeah.
what you were working on most. Okay.
Yeah. This one, that's what I've been drinking on the weekends, sipping, out in the backyard. But the
45% alcohol by volume
So
and
it's a-
90 proof. Look at
yeah,
that.
it's a little bit up there. We it tastes so damn good in the barrel,
Yeah.
right out of the barrel, that we're like, it pains us to proof it down
Okay.
to bottle strength, and we're like, but most people.
But us civilians, come
Right,
on
right.
now.
Wait, so do you get blasted during the day?
Well, we drink, but not that much. But I think. I think
Then they sleep at the distillery, so it's all fine.
it's all part of the training process.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one is, yeah.
That's the training process. Are you hiring?
Right. Exactly. So we went very smoky with it. We actually went to
It does smell wonderful.
86% peated smoked malt.
Okay.
So-
Now, what does the malt part? What does that mean? Single malt.
Yeah, that's a
all
good
those
one
things?
too.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, so single malt gets to be a little bit confusing because
Our show's normally only an hour, but I feel like if I start distributing this whiskey amongst our partners here, that we won't leave. So go ahead, keep talking, Lee.
I want to test your hypothesis.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think we should also raise a glass to Sir Christopher
That is
Lee,
a good idea.
too.
Okay, so while you're explaining the malt, I'll pour a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. So single malt, and we can call it single malt, but we can't call it single malt Scotch because it's not made in Scotland. But single malt, it's there's kind of these sword rules. Single malt's confusing because you kind of assume that it's one malt. That could mean a lot of different things. It actually technically means it's coming from one distillery. It's
and I'm
not
sorry,
a blended.
we're draining this bottle. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
I've
Lee's like, I got lots.
I can make more. But that's so it's actually made from one distillery. But most people generally think of it coming from one type of grain.
Okay.
And we tried to honor that. So we use malted barley, but we actually used two types of malted barley. We used 86% smoked peated malt, but then we used the other 14% was Maris Otter.
Okay.
And
what is that?
So it's a different kind of malt. It comes from a very specific growers and malters. So then they malt this, and it has a very specific flavor. And what's great about it is it's got really nice body, and it had some fruitiness that I really liked to it, that I wanted to kind of offset the smoke with. So in this one, and it's a single malt, but I've had friends that have drank this that are. I've got some really good friends that are hypercritical of scotches and all of that. So
we have friends that are just hypercritical of everything, so I understand that. Yeah. So
I asked him, I was like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "Well, it doesn't taste like a Scotch single malt because it tastes like an American whiskey a little bit." And I was like, "Well, it's a good point because actually the way we make it, so we didn't have 10 years,
right,
to have it sit. So what we did, it's a little bit of a trick, but if you add more oak and you get more surface area to volume, you actually create more contact with oak, and then it creates, and then you can get more flavor more quickly. So we're all these guys, the other whiskeys have to be done in new barrels.
Okay.
So these ones we put in very small barrels, 5-gallon barrels, and there's more surface area to volume. So then we can really get it to the point where it's got all this really rich. I mean, no color was added. I mean, you could see how dark these are.
Right.
These are even in smaller bottles. So to be this dark on a bigger bottle would be even darker than most of them. So we get great extraction from the barrel. This one we put in a used bourbon barrel, but then we also added extra oak. So it kind of has the new oak flavor you get from like a bourbon or a rye.
And I know that you have branched out, so you can get 11 Wells in different liquor stores throughout Minnesota. And have you broadened out to outside of Minnesota as well yet?
We're just now doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we can find you at certain bars and restaurants that are in town as well. And now I know the next project for 11 Wells, you guys are going to open your own cocktail room, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that means that
that's where the next show is going to be.
Yes, is at the cocktail room. So they were planning on opening a cocktail room, and I know that was an interesting challenge for you because there was we're going to get to it. Relax, Nick and Hotep. Put the liquor down. We'll toast in a moment. So he's just waiting. So if you want to top off the battle, you're not driving, so it's okay. I don't care. But the next part of expanding in your spirit realm, if you're going to open a cocktail room, you have to start making more actual spirits, right?
Yeah. And that's the problem. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse because every spirit that we use there, we have to make ourselves.
Okay.
So that makes it more complicated. So I want to make a Manhattan. I can't imagine having a cocktail room without a Manhattan.
Right.
So we have to make. We're working on our vermouth, and but since we're a distillery, technically wineries actually make vermouth.
Oh, okay.
So we're kind of doing it's kind of a spin on it. But the bonus is it's actually higher proof.
Another efficiency. I like it.
So it's essentially a vermouth, but it's a little bit higher proof. So it's perfect.
Very nice. Well, I look forward to that because I think that once we can take another field trip. Once the 11 Wells cocktail room is open, we can all do that. So I know that you guys have been waiting for this. So of course we it was a great idea. Before we move on to our Doctor Who conversation, then we will everybody can raise a glass and we will toast Sir Christopher Lee and his passing. So cheers. Everybody still alive?
My glass is empty.
Oh yeah, well, it's supposed to be.
They're going to come in here and they're going to be like, why do the microphones smell like this?
They're like, your geek show had a party. So, all right.
Are you sure you gave me some?
Yes, I did. And I watched you drink it, so you can't blame it on somebody else. All right. So, Lee, the other reason why you're fantastic is he is also a member of our Geekly family. And so when I asked him to come on the show, he said, yes, I would like to talk about whiskey and our favorite Doctor Who companion. And so in preparation for today's show, I did ask everyone that was going to be in attendance who their favorite Doctor Who companions were. There was a bit of overlap, but of course, since we're talking about a show that started in, 1963, of course, I did bring all the audio because some of them we need to remind our listeners who some of these companions are. So we will help you out with that. And so it seemed like one of the most logical ways to do it is that we will start kind of chronologically a bit. So we'll do some of the old ones and then some of the new ones.
And didn't you post a?
I did. So we also asked all of our, on our Facebook fan page and then on my page specifically, and that was funny.
That.
Yeah, and so it was funny who actually came up with what, and I was very curious to see who was going to mention who. So thank you for everybody that participated out there. So we're going to mention those as well. So,
Did anyone say chameleon?
No.
Yeah,
no,
I didn't see that.
No, nobody said Tegan either. I thought we'd get a Tegan.
She was great.
I liked her. I liked Tegan. Tegan, remember, she was one of the people that hung out with Tom Baker's, and then
She started off a little weak, but she leveled up quick.
Yes, she was the one that was a flight attendant because during that time period,
right.
they wanted somebody that could come across as a strong female character, and a uniform helped. But like if we're going to have a uniform, then they end up with a flight attendant.
Right.
Because that was one of the best feminist characters we come with at the time.
Couldn't have like a woman in unit.
No, exactly, because we didn't do that back then. But I did appreciate her sass and her spunk. The other person that I thought didn't come up more often is that I feel like we should give an honorable mention to Sarah Jane,
Right.
one of the I think longest running companions, but also one of the few companions that got their own spin-off series. So we did have Sarah Jane Chronicles with her.
And bridged the two worlds.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so the fact that she didn't come up on anybody's favorite, I thought that was fascinating that we didn't do. But one of the companions that we did get mentioned, and this came up on Rob Callahan's and also your list, I believe. So Zoe, and I have a clip from Zoe.
It's no good, Zoe. I will not be beaten by this brainless tin box. But you can't do anything about it, can't I? A little problem in Algol, I think. In what? Algol. It's a sort of language you talk to computers in. Now watch.
International Electromatic Company. State your business.
Begin. Real S, sum positive. Delete square, begin sum 2, subscript J. So that's Algol. Integer compute. Print out Y to the minus X variable 1. I'm enjoying this.
International Electromatic.
Go to finish. Continue. Integrate on inversine. It seems to be getting a bit heated. You bet. This equation is insoluble. I think we ought to stand back. Now, continue. Print out continuous integration.
I love Zoe. She was
that was from The Invasion.
Yes, an astrophysicist who meets Scooby Gang is what I felt like because of the time period. Just a lot of whimsy in that character, but also very strong female. Didn't fall as especially for the time period. I think since she was with the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. Not as much of the damsel in distress character that a lot of the other, female companions ended up in. So, it was clearly...
They still put her in glitter and...
and hot pants, because it was the time period.
Right.
She was still cute. Looked like she had a feather boa at any given time.
Right.
But
such an underused accessory.
The feather boa?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And dimples, too.
But when a big muscly like comic book character from the future was like created to fight them, Zoe took the guy on and won.
Right.
So she's this tiny little woman.
And the fact that she's sitting there and then, she comes up with this, they're battling in that particular scene, this computer that they think is so smart, and that her brain is what manages to kill this computer, with the gobbledygook that she's saying.
I thought it was a brilliant move with the subscript J.
Yeah.
Because that's
what makes it insoluble.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
And it was funny. I don't know if you've all seen the entire episode, but like the computer was not the bad guy. It was not like trying to take over the world or kill people. It just wouldn't let them into the building they wanted to get. So she destroys the computer with a logic puzzle just to get the attention of the security so they'll come and get her.
Right, because it was really like, of course, it's almost always either a human or an alien. So it's a human that's just this terrible guy that's like staring at him the whole time. He's watching, I believe, in that episode.
It was Tobias Vaughn. He was in cahoots with the Cybermen. He was part cybernetic, and they were controlling him.
Yeah. So Zoe, so the fact that she came up more than once, we have to go.
She was one of my favorites.
Yes, definitely. I think that totally makes sense. Another person that we got mentioned that was in the same general time period was Jamie, and this is one that Rob brought up. And so we'll play the clip, and then Rob, if you want to tell us a little bit more about Jamie and why you picked him.
Sure.
Stay!
Hey, let the doctor pass, or I'll... Yes, well, let the doctor pass.
That's all right, Jamie.
Doctor, come on, will you? The whole place is going to blow up. Oh, it's quite all right, Jamie. The planet is quite safe. There's just going to be a localized volcanic eruption. It'll only affect the island.
Maybe so, but we happen to be on the island.
Oh, my word!
So why'd you pick Jamie, Rob?
Well, he was fun in that he was the first companion the Doctor had that was not really from modern day or the 60s.
Right.
I mean, there was Katarina, who there's debate about whether she was a companion. She was with him for about an episode and a half and then died. But Jamie had this interesting dynamic with the Doctor when they first started traveling together. He takes him out of, I think it was 18th century Scotland. By the way, the actor Fraser Hines, is that not the most convincing Irish accent you've ever heard? Terrible Scottish accent from that guy. Almost as bad as Perry's American accent.
Oh yeah, Perry's bad.
So the first time they show up in the 1960s, they know something is afoot because they stumble into a murder scene and the Doctor assesses that the person's been killed with a ray gun. Now, Jamie's been traveling into the distant future, into space. He's been with the Doctor a bit. He knows that things like ray guns can exist. He doesn't know they don't exist in the 1960s. So the police come in, start asking what happened, and Jamie proudly starts explaining how they've figured out, someone killed him with a ray gun, and the police are just not having it. And also, like he thought that he called airplanes big silver beasties, and he thought that Ben and Polly had gotten eaten by one. So he was fun, and eventually he did, like all the companions, he had an arc. He eventually got comfortable with the technologies in each time period.
And I think that he was also interesting too, because if I remember, if you watch he juxtaposed the Patrick Troughton Doctor Who, because you did need, if you have, we had a couple of the older guys who were playing the Doctor at the time, so you needed a younger, more like somebody that could be, could handle the physicality of what they needed for the show at the time, and Jamie could definitely handle all that. So he wasn't necessarily,
right?
Yeah, exactly. So he definitely wasn't the one that was there to be the smart person like Zoe, but he was the one that's like, oh, we need to have somebody fight, or we need something that can happen, and he actually managed to fill that in. So,
and that's one of my favorite episodes. I mean,
yes.
that dream one. Where they're running around in there. That was
the Mind Robber.
Yeah, that was a cool one.
And then we'll just go slightly forward in time, and we'll come with one of my picks for favorite companion. And I picked Romana, and I am combining both regenerations of Romana. I think that was a good character overall, and she was one of my favorites. That with Tom Baker, who is also still my favorite Doctor Who actor. So we have Romana here.
My name is Romana Dvaratnalunda.
I'm so sorry about that. Is there anything we can do? What's your name?
Romana Dvaratnalunda.
By the time I've called that out, you could be dead. I'll call you Romana.
I don't like Romana.
It's either Romana or Fred.
All right, call me Fred.
Good. Come on, Romana.
I I just adored her. And I mean, and I understood, like, of course I read back through Mary Tam, who was beautiful, the first Romana, where she wasn't happy with a lot of the, again, damsel in distress, weekly episodes. Her character was originally supposed to be really smart, but not as seasoned and experienced, of course, as the Doctor. And so I can understand why she did it. And then it did, even when she had her regeneration, and we came back with Lalla Ward, who was the second Romana, I thought that did add a lot of whimsy to the character, and you could tell that they had this great rapport, that eventually translated to real life for her and Tom Baker, because they ended up getting married in like 1981 for a while, and then they had a series of commercials for back when computers were huge and like as big as this table, and so she and Tom Baker did a series of commercials for a computer.
Those were great,
back in Australia that you could find online that are just fun, where you just got to go, wow, technology has changed a lot. But watching the way that they were able to play off of each other, I was a big fan of both of those characters. And I remember that, and probably part of the reason why I'm so attached to her is that was about when I started, when my mom first introduced me to the show. So she was one of the first companions that I really knew, and she had a long enough run that I had a big, I was seriously invested in her and how they would hang out with K9 and what was going on at the time. So I was a big fan of Romana, and so I brought her to the table. Let's move towards the new incarnation of Doctor Who. The additional companions that everybody came up with were from the new series. And so the first one I'll mention is another one that came from my list. And so I suggested that we should talk about Martha Jones. Yeah.
I travelled across the world, from the ruins of New York to the fusion mills of China, right across the radiation pits of Europe. And everywhere I went, I saw people just like you living as slaves. But if Martha Jones became a legend, and that's wrong, because my name isn't important, there's someone else. The man who sent me out there, the man who told me to walk the earth. And his name is the Doctor. He has saved your lives so many times, and you never even knew he was there. He never stops. He never stays. He never asks to be thanked. But I've seen him. I know him. I love him. And I know what he can do.
Martha Jones. I think they really did not use her enough. And there was so much they could have done with that character more. I mean, Martha Jones came immediately after Rose, which you already had that love interest, and I was so sick of Rose by the time that was done. Sick of Rose.
Kind of wanted to push her.
I have friends that are super invested in Rose and love Rose, but I was so done with Rose. And so
how'd she fall off the building?
Yeah, I was so ready for a relationship that wasn't, I love him so much, and the unrequited love part of it, I was not a big fan of. I was like, Martha, yeah, I know, but you can do better. A character that had so much potential. But I also like, because that was the first companion of color with Martha. So it is nice to see him like, I always wanted to get into TARDIS, and now I can. So I don't feel like
I'm surprised they didn't do a unit spinoff. I mean, they did, the Torchwood, but a unit spinoff.
And that was something that we had talked off the show about. I brought in this. I've had this conversation with Rob before about how when they brought Martha and Rose's girlfriend Mickey. Was it Mickey? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Mickey. And they ended up in that, in the Torchwood episodes. I thought that they would make good characters to move on to that series, and then they didn't do it, and I was all like, wah wah. I was like,
but it wasn't for lack of desire on the part of the BBC. They both moved to Hollywood,
right? And she's off doing, I don't know, Princess Diaries or something.
Yeah,
some CW show
he's doing terrible Star Trek ripoffs. But they had the cameo at the end of the 10th Doctor's last episode where you saw that they had actually hooked up. They were married, and they were out fighting alien invasions on their own.
So another fantastic character. I was a big fan of everything she did in their relationship as well. So I'm like, you went too soon, but I understand why you have to go be a doctor and all that stuff and save the world. So finally we get to come to a companion that did not have a potential love interest with the Doctor, and they were just mates. And
so it's not Jack?
No. So we're not to him yet. So three of us actually listed Donna Noble on there, and we just love Donna.
Donna's great.
Donna, by the way, Donna Noble, since you didn't ask. I'll have a salute.
Mom.
Thank you. Email. Donna, I'm a human being. Maybe not the stuff of legend, but every bit as important as tunnels, thank you.
I love Donna.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
Donna. And I feel
She's
like
amazing.
she was very underrated because she wasn't the typical hot girl companion. She was a comedic actress that came there, Catherine Tate, who was doing it, and they were, as they put it in the show, best mates.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the way that that was what I needed. It was a great palate cleanser, and their relationship was so much different than everybody else's.
Do you want to be awesome if like Patsy and Adina could like be like companions?
AbFab,
Yes.
AbFab, the ladies from AbFab could do a crossover.
It would be awkward
Right.
because of the one time Joanna Lumley played the Doctor.
True.
Oh yeah.
We'd have a John Frobisher thing.
It's a paradox.
And then the world would explode because
Yeah.
we'd have a paradox
Yep,
that would
fold in,
happen.
yep.
Yeah, but I mean Donna Noble. I mean, there's it's like Lee Rod. I think.
Well, it
did you
broke
bring
up. She broke up that standard formula of this sexual tension.
Yes.
Which I enjoyed that break.
Right.
I really did because it was with Martha and Rose, and it just kind of had always been this thing, and I was just refreshing to think of it that way, and
that they were just two friends gallivanting through the universe doing things, not
And I like that Doctor too, and it was just nice because it was like I actually didn't care for that Doctor right at the beginning. It took me a little bit to get in.
Christopher Eccleston. I always say his name wrong.
Well, at
David
the
Tennant.
beginning.
You didn't like David Tennant at the beginning?
Yeah.
See, I liked him, kind of from the beginning. I always thought
I
he was
wasn't
fantastic.
sold on him until the episode School Reunion, where he ran into Sarah Jane, and as soon as those two characters started to interact, he was the Doctor again.
Yes.
Up until that point, he was just some guy who looks like he should be in a boy band running around telling everyone he's a doctor.
See, and I kind of thought that the evolution between Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant kind of made sense because you needed the Christopher Eccleston. I hope I'm not saying his name wrong. I probably am.
He's not going to listen anyway because we're
no.
talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah, he's not going to listen. Right, he's not going to listen. But I've been saying his name wrong since he was in Heroes. So, like, I know I'm saying. So, everybody that's listening, somebody feel free to write it in phonetically on our Facebook fan page, and I will say his name correctly. But he was that grizzled character that looked like he had just come out of a time war. So I thought that made sense. And then we needed someone that was that softer, smarter. I'm now bridging things and trying
as
to
the
bend
Doctor
relationships.
gets younger too.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought that it did make sense, and you're right, Rob. He is a bit heartthrobby, compared to what we are accustomed to. But
He was cool though, and actually, he's probably one of my favorite Doctors. Once it all got said and done,
he's my second favorite.
Yeah,
he was my second favorite.
Yeah,
I
he
was
was
very
cool.
disappointed when he had to move on, but it makes sense. I mean, with this kind of character, you need to leave eventually. That's all fine.
Yeah, and I thought because the way I watched this, I ended up binging all this on Netflix.
Yeah.
But then so I started watching the new, and I was like, no, I have to start from the very beginning.
Right.
Because I'm like, I got to do this right. So I go back. Kind of punishing myself, and then but a trick I learned.
Yes.
If anybody who hasn't gone back and watched the old and maybe finds them maybe a little slow to watch.
Yes.
Create your own soundtrack and play different music on a low level, like 20% behind it. So like Atmosphere is my music of choice. So play like Atmosphere behind Doctor Number 2 shows.
I love it.
And it's cool. It's cool again.
That does make sense because back then you kind of really, because it wasn't, they would have their special effects, but you're not going to be drawn in for that. That'll make them really cheesy.
Well, they don't make the cuts as quick and all that
Right.
stuff back in the old times, and it's great to see. I mean, once and if I watched the new and then went back, I probably would have enjoyed it that way too. So that's another method. But just it sometimes got difficult to watch. I'm binging at night at like 3 a.m.
And you're dozing off.
and I'm dozing off. Yeah, so it didn't help. But
The local actor Philip Andrew Bennett Lowe has compared the old episodes to a dramatic stage play that happens to have cameras filming it.
That makes sense. That is
And
a
that's really,
great
what it
way to
was.
describe them. Totally.
It was.
And you did have a lot of these. I think the doctors back then were. The actors were so larger than life because of that. Because they had to project to.
Very
He was on TV,
theatrical,
but it
yeah.
was projecting to the back of the theater. So
Right.
you'd have a Patrick Troughton character that was so. You're like, oh my gosh, that seems so cheesy nowadays. But it's like, well, yeah, because TV can't be. You can't amp it up with a more dramatic soundtrack, or the lighting's not going to come in, or the computer, we can't do CGI that's going to make it all look so amazing. It's like you had to act so big that otherwise you're not pulling me in to make that so dimensional. So, all right, back to our another modern companion, we got Clara. So Clara was included as well. So I do have some information from Clara.
Did you make this snowman?
No.
Well, who did? Because it wasn't there a second ago. It just appeared. From nowhere.
Maybe it's snow that fell before. Maybe it remembers how to make snowmen.
What? Snow that can remember? That's silly.
What's wrong with silly?
Nothing. Still talking to you, ain't I?
Love the sass.
What's your name?
Clara.
Nice name. Clara. You should definitely keep it.
I always love when they write in the sass with a companion. So I like those ones that could carry that off well. And that was one of those characters that was so confusing because she would pop up and then disappear and come up kind of slightly different. That it was very confusing for me to go out. Is she important? Should I not pay attention to her? Should I pay attention to her? And so, Lee, when did you decide that you were interested in her?
She was one of my favorites. And, you know, I think there's a couple ways that you can kind of rate companions.
Yes.
Like mental matrix.
Right.
You know, there's intelligence. You know, but then there's also their importance. So, like, are they the center point of the universe? Is it folding in on itself because of them, or something like that? And then, of course, there's also the cute factor.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So Clara definitely had that, but she had great sass. And actually, in the episode where she turned into a Dalek, I was like, dude, she would make an awesome companion. I'm like, it's about time for a new companion.
Right.
And I'm like, dude. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, perfect.
Nice. And that was, I think she was also another, you know, what we'll consider a companion palate cleanser, because the situation between the pawns, between Rory and Amy, had gotten so, at that point, I thought, just it played on so long that it was nice to have something that was just a whole different feel than what you were dealing with.
Yeah, it was another
that
jump.
kind of thing. Yeah, so it was nice to go, no, now this is the way that we're going to do it in a different kind of storyline. So, all right, so Nikahotep, we have your favorite, you know, kind of thing. Yeah, okay, look at him side. So slightly out of order, but I thought this made sense because another one of our companions that actually was the center of a spin-off, our friend Captain Jack Harkness.
Hey, I need that. I can't have you walking around with a time-traveling teleport. You could go anywhere. Twice. Second time to apologize.
And what about me? Can you fix that? Will I ever be able to die?
Nothing I can do. You're an impossible thing, Jack.
Been called that before. But I keep wondering, what about aging? Because I can't die, but I keep getting older. The odd little gray hair, you know? What happens if I live for 1,000,000 years?
I really don't know.
Okay, vanity, sorry. Yeah. Can't help it. Used to be a poster boy when I was a kid, living in the Beauchesne Peninsula. Tiny little place. I was the first one ever to be signed up for the Time Agency. They were so proud of me. The face of Beau, they called me.
When we find out, when the Doctor and Martha find out that he will eventually become the face of Beau, who they've met before, and so very, you know, so he
seriously, they stole that. I mean, that's my story.
Aging slowly.
I mean,
eventually,
seriously, exactly.
Eventually, you'll be the wizened, you know, alien creature that helps. You know,
exactly, I'm your companion.
Yes, you can be my companion. That's
Although
okay.
I gotta say, even though Jack Harkness was my choice, I do want to give an honorable mention to River Song.
Ah, yes,
you know,
we do like River.
Because, you know, villain to villain.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
oh,
evil. What?
But I think at the beginning they were kind of, I mean, they had built Jack a bit of that anti-hero persona as well. You know, so, you know, always was doing things, but, you know, especially once they moved him to Torchwood, wasn't, you know, definitely was doing, sometimes making that hard choice is what they would do with him. So not always the nice choice, that hard choice that he would do sometimes.
That's why I like Torchwood was pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a dark show.
Yeah, and it got more dark, and then it just fell off because, I don't know, they brought it to America and we ruined things, is what I felt. I don't know, did we all watch all of the new Torchwood series? Rob,
well, yeah, it's Torchwood. Of course we watched it.
So what do you
It's
think?
like, did we ever
between
watch the bad Doctor Who episodes? Yeah.
Yes, we watched all of them.
There's
They went,
still
why did you make a
Doctor
bad
Who.
one? Yeah. So by the time we got to the third incarnation of Torchwood, it changed so much. And so do we have a reasoning behind why we think that it went awry there at the end?
The third series, the 5-episode miniseries,
Arc, yeah.
The Children of Earth.
The Stars one.
Wait, the Children of Earth or the one where they...
Children of Earth was still BBC. The Stars was the next one.
Oh, that was the one. Oh, with
Miracle Day.
Miracle Day
with Mackay Pfeiffer.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Because good cast.
It was good cast. It was an interesting story where I don't know if for people who haven't seen it, where everyone on Earth stopped dying, and the only one who could die was Captain Jack,
who couldn't die before,
right?
So
and it was just a bizarre concept. I don't know why the story was a little hard to follow, even for me. I don't know why it stopped at that, though. I mean, where else could you take it?
True.
I mean,
I think the reason that it failed is that it was 10 episodes long, and Jane Espenson only wrote 2 of them. She should have written all 10, and then it would have been amazing. And you can, if you go back and watch it, I mean, it's not terrible. You don't have to suffer through it. It's an okay, engaging thing. It is an amazing 6-episode story squeezed into 10 episodes is what it is. And if you go back and watch, you'll notice the Jane Espenson episodes, because those are the only ones that mention Doctor Who or the Whoniverse.
Yeah.
And the rumors at the time were that Davies wanted to completely distance himself from the BBC and from Torchwood. He owned the property and the characters, but he didn't want people associating it with Doctor Who. He wanted it to be its own thing. And all the writers who were given their scripts to work on were told, you're not to mention any of the Whoniverse stuff. And Espenson was the one who said, no.
That doesn't make any sense.
I signed up to write a Doctor Who story. I'm writing a Doctor Who story. And so that's why there are mentions in that one.
I think we could probably all, since we did have such a variety of people that we brought out, but that's one of the things I think is really inclusive about the series Doctor Who, is that there are so many different companions and there are so many different ways that you can feel engaged with somebody and see a character that has a little piece of something that you could probably relate to, because there are so many different people that are out there. So, I mean, is there anything that we think as they move forward that we'd go, I wish they had a companion like this? Are we missing anything at this point?
I like that, back in time they did more where they were really short stints.
Yeah.
I like when they just some pop in and then some are long. I mean, I hate when they get to an equation where you feel like it should be time for them to move on to the next Doctor or the next, companion. They need to surprise us. I think that's important.
Right. Nick Hotep?
I don't know. Come back to me a second. Let me think.
Okay.
Of that one.
Mr. Callahan?
Frobisher the Whifferdale.
Okay. Can you speak English for people who don't know what you mean?
In the 1980s, there were Doctor Who comic strips that ran in Doctor Who magazine, and I think the Radio Times also. And it was the 6th Doctor, and his companion was a shape-shifting alien that liked the form of a penguin, a talking penguin. And that carried over into the audios when the 6th Doctor was doing audios.
Yes.
And he was voiced by this guy that did like this very classic sort of like hard on his luck private detective voice. And the character was just one of the most unusual and more identifiable of all the, and plus he's a penguin. Doctor would be traveling around with a
penguin,
with a talking penguin. Now he doesn't need to come on all the time, but just like one episode. And the nice thing would be he could really be used as a device to clear up the Peter Capaldi problem.
Yes. Okay.
Peter Capaldi is now the Doctor. Peter Capaldi was also an ancient Roman.
Right.
Survived Mount Vesuvius. So Pompeii. And Peter Capaldi was also the middle manager, the bureaucrat who was the villain in Torchwood Season 3. So this person with the same face keeps coming up. And in Torchwood Season 3, he was actually called Frobisher. So what better way to explain it than the Doctor's old companion, who is Frobisher, has been going around, changing his face, trying to blend in, trying to get back together with the Doctor.
Yeah, see, I mean, they kind of brought that up with the Lala Ward character because who played the second Romana, because she had played a character before, and they said, well, she ended up assuming this particular face because she kind of got to pick, and so they kind of wrote that in.
She liked
the
face.
Sense.
Yeah,
she liked the face, and she wrote that in. And I think what I would like to see as they go forward is actually pretty easy because they've done bits and pieces of it, but I like when they add in because they have the opportunity for more diversity, and it's like you're making up this world, so there's no reason that you can't have more characters of color, and you can't have more, different gender roles. You can't have more, I think even with Jack Harkness's character, where it's like, okay, he was one of the first. It's like, okay, is he gay? Is he straight? Is he what? He's a little bit of both for a while. Then it's like, okay, I think that there's more room for that, and it adds another dimension that they can with the characters
or a
and
non-human.
Another non-human.
He was pansexual.
Yes,
which was
exactly. Yeah, and I think that I like those kind of opportunities because that's what you have companions for. Everybody brings something a little bit different. So, I think that they have a lot of room to grow, and hopefully we'll see that.
I'd still like to see a woman play the Doctor.
I'm looking for that.
Officially, there was an audio, and Joanna Lumley did it in a spoof, and she was amazing.
And I thought we were leading towards that with Donna Noble's character, and then they just we're just going to wipe her brain and drop her off on Earth. And I was like, boo.
Oh, you like Donald Noble? Well, here's what we'll do to her.
Right. We'll write her in a way that she can never come back. Thank you. Her brain will explode. I'm like, boo, people. So I think that, we have lots of room, and it does sound like all of us are very, even if the Doctor doesn't give us exactly what we want, we're still all going to continue
Angela
to watch
Lansbury.
it.
Right. We have no
Angela
choice.
Lansbury.
That's who I want as the...
Yeah, Betty White.
Exactly.
Betty White.
No,
is
I
the
mean,
Doctor.
No, now that Michelle Gomez has played the Master, I think we should have someone like Tamsin Grigg, who was her arch rival in Green Wing.
Who else could I
And she
see?
played Fran in Black Books, and she had an episode in Eccleston's series.
or like an older Marple.
If I vote for somebody, I always go. Geez, now my brain just stopped because the person that I always want to have be Storm, Angela.
Angela Bassett? Yeah.
Angela Bassett.
Oh, Angela
I
Bassett
always
would be
vote Angela
awesome.
Bassett.
That would be awesome.
That would make the rest of my life. If
Angela
Angela Bassett
Bassett
ended up the Doctor, I'm good.
Or at least a
I'll stop
companion.
asking for stuff.
Or at least a
Gotta
companion.
Oh no, I want her to be the Doctor.
Okay.
Because then that takes care of I like people of color, and she's a woman. I'm good. I will. Then they can, no matter what, kind of thing. They can let the guy who wrote the Notebook write the rest of the episode. And I'm like, but Angela Bassett's the Doctor. I'm good. All right. So, Lee, tell everybody where we can find you online with 11 Wells, and where we can the easiest places for us to go and ask for all of the 11 Wells spirits.
Yeah, so 11wells.com with the E or spelt out, dashfirebitters.com. And then we're in about 175 stores around the state. So, I mean, you can find us pretty regular. A lot of great liquor stores. And then, there's some great bars. You've got W.A. Frost's in Minneapolis, Spoon and Stable. In St. Paul, Spoon Stable in Minneapolis. So, yeah, lots of great places. You'll start seeing it more and more. And if you get the chance, I would run out and go buy the single malt because we actually won't have any more for like 6 months.
Ooh, okay. We all have homework assignments now.
So it's definitely, there's only a certain amount out there. So
it's tasty.
Yes, I think we'd all agree. It's like none of us made that face like, oh my gosh, I didn't like.
Right.
We're all like, yeah, we could have done that again.
Speaking of, can I make a request? I know we're going kind of long,
No,
but
that's okay.
Could we all just take another shot of something?
You pick. There's what bottles are
while
there?
we're recording, and then just talk a little bit about it.
Okay. Which one is this one?
Yeah, these all have proper corks in them too. It's not like the the booze I'm used to buying, which has a screw-off cap.
That's like my wine, that kind of thing.
This one and this specific batch, both batch 5 and batch 6 are really, really tasty.
Okay.
So this is our rye, and we actually make it with 100% rye.
Okay.
So a lot of ryes people don't because it's a little problematic. It boils over, bubbles over, and all that jazz.
Okay.
But they've never worked with oat if they call rye problematic.
Okay.
Oat is way more difficult. But
Okay.
this is 100% rye. 90% of it comes from Minnesota. The other malt is coming from outside the state. But yeah.
So this is our, again, what are we having now?
It's a rye, and this is batch 6.
Batch 6. So
Who are we toasting?
we are toasting the Doctor and all of his fantastic companions, courtesy of your Geek Show. Cheers.
Mazel.
Sláinte.
Oh, yeah.
I like the after
Super
effect
sweet,
of that.
right?
Yes.
I'm feeling that. Yeah,
That's
good.
delicious.
Is that one of the 90 proof ones?
No, that's we do 84 or 42% ABV because 42 is the answer to everything.
I love it.
Yeah. So in every bottle.
That is perfect. And so you promised that once we get your cocktail room up and running, then your Geek Show gets another field trip, and we'll do one of our broadcasts from there. That will help. Stop, Nick and Hope. I will bring you. Relax. We'll all go together. We'll do a live broadcast from their new
Make sure you
cocktail
download
room.
your Uber app before you come.
Exactly, because
I
it
was
is going to be a
open
party.
the place within walking distance of my house. So.
That's okay. We'll have people that have a party bus, so we should do that as well. We could do that.
We can
have
pedal pub.
No, because we're not pedaling.
I can teleport us.
You don't get to drunk teleport. That did not work out well last time we did it. So, no, we will make sure that we come out and we visit. So we want to say thank you to our guests.
That explains a lot, the drunken teleporting.
Yeah, you see? Behaving poorly. That is our social media.
My pants were on.
Yes, exactly. But not for the whole entire time. So...
But on
you can
what?
You can always find us at yourgeekshow.com. Yes, we're on Facebook at Your Geek Show MN and on Twitter at Your Geek Show. Nika Hotep, our social media demon, is there working diligently to make sure that he gets back to everybody, so you can always get a hold of us. Next week, our guest geek of the week will be our friend Ian Rands from formerly of Drinking with Ian, and you can find him doing the match game throughout the Twin Cities, and he is going to be here to talk to us about underrated 80s bands. And so you'll be able to hear him next week. And I thought that would be fun, and I was very excited to see the underrated 80s band battle that will probably happen between Ian and Rob Callahan, because I feel like it would be a knowledge off.
Because as everyone knows, I was born in the 90s, but I studied a lot of music from
Keep
that era.
saying
So.
that. That's all fine. It's, everybody has their moments. So I will take you to that. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, to Custom T-Shirt Central. They are a great team. You can find them at CustomT-shirtCentral.com. Thank you to the Twin Cities Film Fest. Jake Satie will be back in a couple of weeks. He's looking for films for their film festival that'll be happening in October. And as always, thank you to Chris McDuffie, our fantastic photographer friend at Chris McDuffie Photography. We hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will see you next week on Your Geek Show.
Another glass failed again and again. I've been down and I've been higher than 6 days. I've passed the higher powers if they would just